All right, welcome to what we're going to call episode 53 of the Athletic Philosopher podcast. I am your humble host, Jordan Goldstein, former university professor in sport history, philosophy, psychology, sociology. Had a bit of a fallout with the entire Ivory Tower over multiple issues. Thank goodness for me. Maybe big loss for them. Who knows? But now we are full into the world of life coaching, fitness coaching, spiritually training through athletics, endurance training coaching, serving as the tribal professor on tribal training. And if you are ever interested in getting in contact with me about any of those services, coaching, training, mentoring, any of those fun things that now I do, get a hold of me through the Substack. Send me a message. Everything's in the show notes. Get in contact with me. And I have a feeling that many people will be wanting to get in contact with me after this upcoming weekend, which will be the big A race of 2025 for me, which is the Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra. Little sneak peek of what I'm working on for my next coaching opportunity. It's going to be a year-long coaching group. You can get in for 12 months, 9 months, 6 months, 3 months, but we're all going to be working together towards Prairie on Fire 2026. I did this not for this year, but for the race last year, and it was a great success. Bringing in people, creating a strong knit community of people from all over North America, training together, and really getting ready to take on this race. You know, I was moving, didn't really know what was going on last year, so I kind of paused that and took a little bit of a bigger role on the endurance team. You know, so we've got 15 athletes coming from tribal training this year to the race. But next year, I want to bring even more people. And what's going to be a bit different about this upcoming group is we're really aiming the training at a spirit we're aiming our training for the race through day-to-day consistency of athletic training and athletic training that is rooted in a spiritual discovery, a spiritual knowing, and ultimately rooting the entire endeavor in character development, personal growth, and the attainment of virtue and potential. So very cool things coming up. If you're at all interested, want some details, want to know how this is going to work, want to get into the race for next year with our crew, again, all the information you need to get in contact with me directly will be in the show notes. So please check those out and send me any questions you may have. But I'll be revealing that information next week or the week after, because today it's all about race week. It's all about the preparation for race week. Now, last year I recorded a podcast around the same time, and it was all about how I philosophically prepare for a race. So it was more about mind and spirit rather than the physical preparation, the physical training regimen that I took on. And that was episode 6. That was episode 6 of this podcast. Now we're at 53 in about a year. So, you know, that's, number one, a testament to consistency and just showing up, you know, trying to put out a podcast every week was my goal this year. And I think I'm doing pretty well at maintaining that goal. But it's neat because now we're starting to cycle through some of the similar topics that I was talking about last year. So if you're interested at all in like this philosophical preparation for a big time race in terms of getting your mind and your spirit most properly aimed and then allowing kind of like the body to follow, check out episode 6 from last year. I'm not going to be talking specifically about that today. What I want to talk about today when it comes to preparation for a big race and how you feel during race week and how you get ready to actually show up to the race, I want to go through the body, the mind, and the spirit separately as, again, good evidence of this approach, right? This holistic approach, this embodied approach to physical training, and how a race on a calendar is a perfect orientation to sort of bring out that day-to-day consistency, but also to like align these different parts of us into harmony and unity with each other, all going towards the same aim with purpose, conviction, and meaning. And I want to just, let a little bit of the freeness of this podcast animate the way that I'm going to discuss the mind, the body, and the spirit. So we've got a little bit of a structure, but ultimately, like, race week brings out all of these different feels. And maybe let's just start with the thing that's most on my mind right now, which is, holy moly, you just got to be healthy. Holy moly, you just got to be healthy. One of the interesting things about, the couple of days leading up to the race is that, nerves, anxiety, they play on you in very interesting ways. And especially when you are about to do a race like the race we are about to do, which is a backyard ultra race. So if you're not sure what a backyard ultra race is, let me just spill it out very quickly. It's a last man standing race, so you don't really know how far you're going to run because it's a loop course. So you're going to run a loop on the hour every hour. So the race starts at 8 o'clock, you're running the loop, and then you go back at 9 o'clock and you do it again. And this race just goes on until there's one person left. So you don't really, So you don't really know how far you're going to be running. You don't know when your breaking point is going to come. It's not like a defined time or defined distance, which most races have. It's really this, like, we're all going to go battle. We're all going to go to the deep place. We're all going to go to the dark. In terms of this battle against ourselves. For someone, that might happen on like lap 6. For someone else, it might happen on lap 20. It just depends on your physical fitness and where you are in your particular journey when it comes to running and ultra running. But I am a big time believer, because I have this embodied understanding and I live this embodied way and I train in this embodied way, that oftentimes the body is a place of sabotage for the mind. So the mind, I really believe, will sabotage you by sending pain signals down to your muscles to say, start hurting, start destroying this guy's willpower, start sapping him of energy, start increasing the adversity because we just want to quit. Right? The body can keep going past a lot of these pain thresholds that we believe are like the final barrier. They're like the final barrier, right? And oftentimes, like when I'm just in a long training run, a long training session, I find that parts of my body will just start to hurt. And there's no real rhyme or reason to it other than it's kind of like a sabotage. Oh, geez, like now my foot's starting to hurt. I've never had this foot pain before. That must mean something is really bad. That must mean something is really wrong. And so I should probably stop. When in reality, if you just keep running, it's like the pain goes away in a few minutes. And you can say, well, are you just running through injuries? It's not that easy. But effectively, like what's going on right now is this sense of like false, I don't even know. It's like a false signal. It's like a false positive of injury. So, yesterday I woke up and I have this pain in my hip that I haven't experienced in, I don't know, like 18 months or something. But it's like, it's all of a sudden, and it's enough to start playing inside of your mind. Like, do I back off the training more? Do I start narrowing my potential? Do I start limiting what I think I can do? Because, oh no, I got this sort of little niggle that's popped up. And my thought is the body's just trying to trick me. Like the body and the mind are in tandem. They're trying to trick me here. They're trying to make it more difficult, and they're trying to sap me of willpower because my stated goal is to run for at least over 24 hours, if not longer, right? And that's going to create a tremendous amount of pressure. It's going to put me into tremendous opportunities for adversity and pain and struggle and challenge. And, the mind is all about figuring out shortcuts and ease and comfort, and it doesn't want this. It doesn't want me to go do this. So already, right? You start to feel things. You start to see opportunities to exit. You start to look for big time excuses that you can use to justify to yourself and to other people about, would it be that big of a deal if I didn't show up? Like, would it be such a big deal if I didn't show up? And lots of people quit the race before the race starts, and it is in these like 2 weeks or 1 week before the race where anxiety, nerves, tension builds up, and it becomes too much, and you take one of these like exit ramps off. And sometimes they're valid and justified. Other times you're just thankful there's an excuse there, and that you could trick and deceive yourself for a little bit, right? I've got experience, coaching people up to these types of races and through them. And the regret of not showing up because of a perceived limit that turned out to not really be that big of a deal carries so much regret, guys. It carries so much regret when, you've trained up so hard, or you maybe haven't trained up, and you've got to go and put yourself out there in a public performance. There's a lot on the line, right? There's a tremendous amount at stake when we go out and we do these races, like our identity, our self-confidence, our image of ourselves, our assurance in who we are, our belief in our potential and what we could become. Like, a lot of these things are on the line, and it's, sports are all about life and death, thankfully not literally, although in some cases absolutely literally, but certainly like metaphorically and symbolically, like sports are all about life and death. I was watching my nephew play soccer a couple of weeks ago, and his team routed the other team. It was like 12-0 or something. And you want to tell me sports aren't about life and death? Energy on the winning bench versus energy on the bench that just literally got their lunch fed to them, like in a way you would never want to experience, losing 12-0 in a soccer game. A lot of those faces of the kids look like death or life, right? So there's a lot at stake, and the mind wants to preserve, right? And the ego wants to preserve. So you end up with all of these conflicting signals in between body, mind, and spirit, right? And it's like, well, shoot, how do I detangle them? Maybe that's what the podcast is going to be about. It's like, how do I untangle all the chaotic messiness that happens inside of myself as we move up to race day? I could talk to you about my training plan. I could tell you why I wanted to run X amount of miles in X week, or push, or include 3-sport training, right? I could talk to you about mindset preparation. I could talk to you about willpower. But what I find maybe most salient right now, at least for me, and the athletes I'm coaching up towards this race, and like the future athletes, that I'll be guiding in races like this, is like, how do we make a sense of what is actually happening inside of us, and how do we harness and control all of the nerves and the emotions, the excitement, the enthusiasm, the trepidation, the fear? Like, how do we come to terms with this and understand it based on the way in which we've trained, right? Because the way in which we've trained is going to determine what happens on race day. It determines what happens on race day. And I've mentioned this in a whole bunch of other podcasts. I'll mention it in a whole bunch of future podcasts. But when we are training in this embodied way, in this holistic way, when we are aiming the physical training at character development, at virtue, at holiness, some of the ideas I've thrown around here on previous podcasts, the starting line is the line that matters most. The starting line is where everything happens. The starting line is the magic. Maybe that's one of the reasons I love this race format so much, is because we get to go to the starting line over and over and over again, and we have absolutely no idea of where the finish line is, right? Because the finish line is often an illusion. The finish line is often an illusion if we want to train in a way in which we bring out our best potential, right? That idea of character growth and virtue. The starting line is where everything happens. Why? Because it's the confirmation of your training process. Number one, we have to be grateful and recognize with a great deal of perspective that even getting to the start line is a tremendous victory. We may have trained up, we may not have trained up, but we still have the courage to show up and put ourselves out on the line, right? My coach, Zach Hummel, has got a great saying about training, race day execution, or competition execution. And you should really listen to this guy because he set an amateur record, world record for the deadlift. And he's competed in powerman and strongman competitions against people way bigger than himself. And he comes out on top, like winning the entire competition, right? So listen to this wisdom here, right? You don't rise to the level of your performance or to the level of your expectations. You fall to the level of your training. You fall because once the race starts, once the competition starts, the variables, like there's so many variables at play. You're just not in control, and you have to rely on what you've already done. You have to rely on what you've already experienced, what you've already trained up inside of yourself. So the start line, if you haven't gone through all of the transformations, if you haven't gone through some sort of transcendence, if you haven't gone through a lot of adversity and overcome and conquered through the training, then you're not going to experience that. You're not going to experience that transcendence just by simply getting to the finish line and crossing it. The finish line is an illusion. There's so many people who sign up for big time races who think this is going to change me, and they begrudgingly they do the training. They're not excited about the training. They don't love the training. They feel like the training is a punishment, that it's a chore, and they just can't wait to get it over with. They want to get to the race. They just want the medal. They just want the bumper sticker. They just want the tattoo. And lo and behold, they haven't changed at all throughout the entire process. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in transcendence. I'm interested in looking back 2 months and recognizing, hey, my big breakthrough of self already happened. It came in me finally figuring out how I can train consistently, maybe 4 days a week, hit my goals while also becoming a better husband, a better father, a better employee, employer, entrepreneur, CEO, whatever it is that you do. It's in recognizing how all of this stuff fits together to propel you toward the greater version of yourself. That's what matters the most. And there's always a point or 2 or 3 in the training that is going to give us a much bigger win and satisfaction of self and conquering of self than anything that happens inside of the race, right? The race is our chance to show it to other people. The training is the place to prove it to ourselves. That's good. The race is where we show other people who we are. But if we haven't done the work in training to become believers in the best versions of ourselves and to bring that to any endeavor where I'm being challenged, where there is adversity and struggle in the way, well, it's just not it. It's just not it, guys. So that's what I am feeling right now on the inside. I am grateful for the training. I love the training. I love the training because every day I get a chance to remind myself of the best parts of me that I can overcome, that I can look adversity in the eye and say, not today. I ain't quitting. I'm not quitting. So the start line is where all the magic happens. The start line is where all the magic happens. Everything else that happens once you get inside of the arena, that's almost like a bit of a dream world. It's real, but it's not real. The day-to-day training, that's real. That's my life. That's where I've got to fit it all in, make it matter, make it mean something, and be able to take what I'm giving to myself and pour it all out to the people who rely on me, who I'm obligated towards, who I'm responsible to. So we celebrate the start line. And when it comes now to race week preparation, it's like just get to the darn start line. So that idea of like being in good health, that's the most important thing. There's no point in squeezing in big time sessions. What you need is extra sleep. What you need is proper hydration. What you need is mobility. What you need is to feel good about yourself. Rolling up into camp, rolling out onto the start line on race day. You want to feel confident in the body. So how do you train yourself to become ready in the body, right? This is a physical challenge. It's an athletic contest, so it's all going down in the body. Like, yeah, it's all mental. Yeah, it's spiritual in terms of like what's going to make the difference out there, but it's experienced through the body. This is primarily a bodily experience. So how do you train the body up? Consistency, grinding, day to day, showing up, especially on the days where you're tired, where your motivation is low, and you have to just rely on discipline. These are the biggest wins. These are the biggest days when it comes to your body, right? You can have great days with great numbers where everything feels good, and that's nice. But it's the days where you just kept going that's going to matter the most. And you want all of these different experiences in your training. And you're not going to get good days, bad days, and sort of like ugly days if you're not showing up day to day to day. So number one, how do you train the body to become ready? Daily consistency with the training. Not going too hard, keeping some energy in the tank at the end of your session so you can get going really easily the next day. And for me, when I think about a couple of the training sessions that, stand out for me, there's one training session that's like, I had to nail this session. If I went out and this one didn't turn out good in the body, I was going to have some serious, I was going to have to do some serious changing for, the remaining kind of weeks that I would have. And this is the 20-mile trail run I did up in Wisconsin on the Ice Age Trail on Father's Day. So this is a training session that's months ago. We're talking like almost 2.5 months before the race. This is my A training session. 20 miles is a gigantic run. 20 miles is a gigantic training run. No matter what distance you're preparing for, 20 miles is a big deal. That's a big deal to hit in training. I also was going up to rugged trails with a lot of elevation. So 20 miles, over 2,500 feet of elevation. Where I live right now, North Shore of Chicago, the idea of a rugged trail, it doesn't exist. That's why I have to drive an hour and 30 minutes up to Wisconsin, which I've only done twice since I've been here because I can't be driving 3 hours on the weekends, right, to go do a trail run. I did for my birthday and I did for Father's Day, right? These are special for me days. The first one in April was a 15-miler, and it was hard. It was real hard. This one on Father's Day, however, this was a big one for me. This was let's go for 20 miles. Let's go for more than 3 hours. These training runs, I do fasted. I don't take water. I don't take food. So I'm totally in a deprived state. And I wanted to feel strong and confident and capable in those final 5 miles. That was the plan. And this training session was really cool because it was it was at the end of a 100-mile race that I actually wanted to sign up for, but it was so popular I didn't get in. And so I'm running this trail and I'm seeing maybe like the final 15% of the people that are still out there doing the 100-mile race. So I get to see people like fighting. I get to encourage them. I get to cheer them on. I get to feel a little bit of the race day energy crossing some aid stations. I saw the sweepers a bunch of time picking up the flags. So that was a really fun experience because that's what I'm going to be doing at the race. I'm going to be running, but I'm also going to be like feeling other people's despair, I guess is a good way to put it, and trying to encourage them, which takes a lot of energy out of you, by the way. That takes a lot of energy out of you. As some of my previous race recap pods have gone, especially the ones where I'm doing the live coaching through the races. But I just really wanted to nail this session in terms of feeling good. And I felt great. It was such a hard run to keep up kind of like the pace that I wanted, and especially my legs. But I'll tell you what, that 20-miler in June felt so much easier than the 15-miler I did in April. And it was objectively harder. So my legs felt good. My cardio was on point. I was able to maintain high energy, and coming into, that final mile, I wanted it to be over, definitely, but I felt really strong and comfortable pushing like that. And that just gave me a tremendous amount of confidence in, hey, my training process, it's working. Because I showed up here 2 months ago and I got kind of beat up by the 15 miler, but I really rose physically for the 20 miler. And that gave me a lot of confidence in my intuition and my gut that I know how to get my body in shape for big efforts. For big efforts. So, how do you train the body to become ready? Daily consistency so that you just have a touch on that go when you don't want to, but it also builds durability, robustness, and primes you up for excellence so that when you do have a big effort, you can nail it. And when you nail the big effort, well, that's confidence, and you can just rest on that. You can rest on that as something you bank. You know yourself. I know that I don't need to run 15 miles every week on the trails to show up and then smash a 20 miler. Like, I can run on the not so great Illinois trails, right? And then show up at something a little bit more rugged and blast that out. And that was confirmed to me when I went back to Canada and I smoked the old trails that I used to run like last year. Just absolutely crushed them. So how I train the body is to trust my process. I've been doing this for 12 years now in terms of daily training and running. It's relying on the process. It's relying not on one or two big things or any particular metrics that I got to be hitting. It's just, how do I keep building day to day, week to week consistency? You know, that is going to take care of so much of the anxiety and the nerves when it comes to being prepared. And I've seen this in some of the people that I'm coaching right now to come to this race, where they may not have had the exact training block that they wanted in terms of, oh, I didn't hit a run that was I didn't hit a 15 miler. Oh, I missed a bunch of these like smaller runs in between. I don't have access to the trails that I want. Like whatever it is. Shoot, the guy I'm thinking of, he moved. He moved with his family right in the middle, right? So that's a complication that he didn't foresee when he signed up for the race. But he's had his most consistent year ever with running. He's ran more miles than he ever has in, a January to September block ever. And he's not thinking about, the individual sessions that I missed. He's thinking, man, I've showed up so consistently for myself that I'm ready to throw down. Right? So the consistency of the training is what actually allows you to become prepared in the body. It's not weekend warrior stuff. It's not a particular distance hit 3 weeks out from the race. Like, those things are nice, but they're kind of like placebos for the mind. What's real is how consistent you have been months and months leading up to these races. Another just quick example from one of the guys who's going to be at the race. We were all trained up. We had a team 50 miler earlier on in the year. And, this is an individual who had taken on some big races. He's finished big races, but has never really nailed the day-to-day consistency. And he showed up at this 50 miler and, has a lot of experience in ultras and crewing, knows a lot of the big hitters in the ultra marathoning world too. And he just didn't have a great day. He was struggling. It was not a good race. He gutted it out. He persevered and we finished, but it was not a good day. It was not a good race day. Fast forward a couple months, this guy's taking on a 200-mile race and has used the urgency of the 200-mile race to finally nail down the day-to-day. And so he's got this 200-miler in the back pocket, but everything out of his mouth about why he feels primed and ready for this next race has nothing to do with the fact he took down a 200-mile race back in June. Pardon me. It's actually the same weekend I did the Ice Age Trail, the 20-miler up in Wisconsin. That he's never said anything about that. What he said is the consistency, right? The fact that I'm running 3 times a week, 4 times a week, that I'm training, that I enjoy the training is what's making me confident. is what's making me confident. So race week preparation, how do you train the body to become ready? You trust the training. So I don't feel any anxiety over being physically ready or physically prepared. What I want to do is show up healthy. And I also know, when thinking about like the mind sending in those sabotaging signals like I talked about earlier, I know that I've run so often and I felt so many times like, ooh, why is this muscle flaring up? Like, oh my gosh, like my foot's sore 30 seconds into the run. This is awful. And then 5 minutes later, you don't even feel your foot anymore negatively. It's just you're through it. So this idea of pain coming as a way to sort of alert you that you should quit, but that you just can push through. Yeah. That's a good one. And so this kind of gets now into the mind. So how do you prepare the mind to take on the task? Honestly, the answer to all three of these, it's going to come back to daily training. It's all going to come back to consistent daily training because, guys, when we are aiming at the spirit with the physical training, it is the ritual. It is the doing the thing day to day that makes all of the meaning. That makes all of it. So how do you prepare your mind to take on the task? Consistency. I've got to be, I'm in a race where I have to get up to a start line every hour on the hour when I don't want to, when I want an extra 5 minutes to just sit and drink some water or just chill or grab some more food or talk to the people in the camp or whatever it is that take my mind off the fact I got to keep going out there. What does the mind need to do? The mind needs to set these appropriate aims. The mind needs to calibrate itself to the body's capabilities and the spirit's demands. And it's got to be able to sort of navigate through all these different variables, right? With some rational calculation, with some logical consistency. And most importantly, when it comes to a race without end, we've got to kind of force a narrative structure into this. We have to force a narrative structure into this. The mind can't make sense of anything if it's not in a narrative. It can't. I'm sorry. If there's not a start, beginning, and a beginning, a middle, and an end, then the mind can't grab onto it. And you might be thinking, well, that's a bit of a stretch. And I would say maybe, but give me a counter. Give me a counter example of something without a story that becomes meaningful or sensible. Even a scientific experiment has a start, a beginning, and an end. What's the starting point? The hypothesis. What's the middle? It's the experiment. And what's the end? That's your conclusion, right? Everything's got a start and a middle and an end. But in a race with no end, how the heck do you figure out where to aim the mind? This is something that's very tricky. It's something that I've talked a lot with our tribal sensei, Louis, about. Louis is like the elder statesman on the team. He's a 61-year-old legend who runs ultramarathons and Ironmans and is a 4th degree black belt in karate. And he's got the mind. He's got the mind for this stuff. And him and I, we both wanted to try to hit 100 miles last year in this race. And neither of us did. And there's this difficult paradox that's at play with a race like this where I can't put a number into my mind. I can't put a number because my mind will automatically calculate the effort to that number. Like when I go out to Wisconsin and I run 20 miles, I know from step one, it's like from here to 20 miles. So the entire effort gets calibrated and calculated towards that end. I've got the starting point, I got the finish point, and it's up to me to figure out the middle. But without an end point, where do I go? How do I make sense of it? So we have to have this idea of not having a number, but recognizing if I don't have a number, it's a bit too chaotic, and I've got to give myself some sort of like a landing zone. I got to give my mind somewhere to go, to aim me towards, right? So we came up with this idea of like maybe a loose range. And what ends up happening even when you put in the loose range is your mind starts to calculate to the lower bound. Oh, I just get to the range and then it's okay for me to stop. The mind wants that number. It needs the number. So it's about finding this like tricky harmony, at least specifically for a race like this, between like, what's my aim? Where would I like to go? And how do I blend the sort of the objective and the subjective? Because if I say, right, this race will be a success if I hit 100 miles and then I hit 95 and I can't hit the 100, is the race a success or is the race not a success? Like, do I want one variable to define the win or lose of the race? I don't. I understand that there's the objective measure, and it's like you either do it or you don't, and that's fine, and I want that. But I don't want that to be the meaning of the race. I don't want that to be the meaning of the race. I want the meaning of the race to come in my ability to rise, my ability to conquer each time I want to quit, and to fight back as often as I can. So ultimately then, how do we prepare the mind for a race like this? It's very tricky. But again, it's that day-to-day consistency. How many days do you think you wake up early and you're like, I'm so excited to get out there and go for a run or get a bike ride or go swim or jump rope or lift weights or whatever it is? It's not all the time. It's probably not even 50% where you're super enthusiastic. You've got to use some sort of a different carrot to get you going, right? Maybe it's just habit. It becomes automatic. Maybe there's discipline, right? Little kick in the pants. Maybe it's love or enthusiasm based or joy based, right? We need all of these different ways to keep us moving, to keep us consistent. And I can use the mind to latch on to any one of these different reasons to just get me started sometimes. Like when the body is sore and the spirit's a little lagging, I can rationally start to make these arguments as to why I need to go. And so I begin to train my mind to see the value of going one more. And in a race like this, that's my mind should be trained on the next lap. And on the what do I need for the next lap? What do I need for the next lap? What do I need for the next lap? Like, what hydration needs do I need right now so that I'm going to feel good in 3 hours? What food should I start putting into my body right now so I feel good in 2 to 3 hours? And then you just keep playing that, right? So the day-to-day training, the day-to-day consistency and training in this embodied way where we recognize the body and the mind and the spirit, they're all there. Sometimes one or two are a little more in the forefront. Sometimes they're in the background. But it's me showing up and getting some conquering victory out of the session. That's where my mind goes. That's what I need my mind to be able to focus on. I don't need it running stats. I don't need it running numbers. It's going to do that no matter what. Like, that's the thing with the brain is it computes, it analyzes, it rationalizes, it synthesizes, right? It concludes, it interprets. It's going to do that on race day, whether I want it to or whether I don't want it to, okay? So this is like an automatic part. It's like the body just moves, right? You know, if you walk, the body will just eventually find a rhythm. Same thing with running. If you're just running, eventually the body just kind of gets automatic. The mind automatically going to do all this processing for us. So what I want my mind to actually consciously be trained on is this idea of the next one. And if I train in a way that makes it easy and exciting for me to hit the next training session, well, now I'm baking that directly into my mindset when it comes to athletics. The reason I'm here today is so I can show up again tomorrow. The reason I'm on lap 21 is so I can run lap 22. And I get to just add on. And so I can take a little bit of that, what's the number? Do I need the number kind of anxiety? And I can simply just get it into the next lap, into the next lap, into the next lap. So how do I prepare my mind to take on the task? Day-to-day consistency. Okay, so we got the body. The answer is day-to-day consistency. We got the mind. The answer is day-to-day consistency. What is the spirit? So I got very rough notes on this one. It's race week preparation, body, mind, and spirit. I got how I trained the body to become ready. We did that. How I prepared the mind to take on the task. Did that. Now we're spirit. How I cultivated a spirit willingly to take it all on. I already said that the answers are going to be the same for all of them. It's the day-to-day consistency. It's the day-to-day fidelity to your training, to that higher version of yourself. The conquering, right? How do you get enthusiastic about a race where you know you're about to destroy yourself? That's the point of this race. Nobody gets out of this race alive in that sense. Like, everybody's got to go to the abyss. Everyone's got to go to the dark place. In some of these races that are distance based, you don't have to physically get there. You can manage your effort and you can have like a solid day where you don't go too far down. I'm not suggesting like you're not going to feel adversity or pain or discomfort, but there's a difference. There's a difference between taking yourself to the physical ruin, and there's a difference between physical ruin, taking yourself to physical ruin, and ruining yourself physically in a race. They're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. Because if you quit this race and you're not like kind of beat up in the body, you didn't do it right. You didn't do it right. And you kind of let up way too early. And in my estimation, that would be, let's say you're running a 50-mile race, whatever, 50K race. Like, it doesn't matter. It's just a marathon. So if you're running a marathon and you finish 22 out of the 26 miles, it's really hard to run 22 miles, but it ain't 26, right? Those final 4 miles make all the difference. And in a backyard ultra, it's not like you need 4 more miles. It's, did you take yourself to the end of the race? And the end of the race is this idea that I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna die out on the course. Like, I'm not gonna die in the chair. And dying is like quitting. Remember, sports are all about life and death, guys. Sports are all about life and death. So the aim that everybody has when they do this race is to like go out and not make it back because they can't hit the time cutoff. So you're out there, but you're physically incapable, or like you're physically incapable of like getting back up out of the chair once you go back. Like, you want to take yourself to this ruining place where you're just so beat down that you can't do it anymore. And in other races, they don't do that. Like, you may calculate your effort to the finish line. Like, I saw a couple of our teammates do that in Chattanooga. One in particular, like, he had to lie down and take like 30 minutes to recover after he went all out to get to the finish line. But that was a conscious choice to sort of burn all of his gas right at the end. And he wasn't dying the whole time of the race. Just like, we're not going to be dying every lap, but all of a sudden it's going to be real hard to make that time cut off. And if you don't get to this place where you're not really fighting against yourself, then you just haven't done this race correctly. So everybody who's going to do a backyard ultra needs to willingly take on this idea of physical ruin. Oh my gosh. Well, how do we do that? Experience taking myself to the limit, and not just like a physical limit. Like, there's very few training sessions where I finish where I am dying, where I feel like I am right at the edge. That Wisconsin 20 miler was close, right? I went 20 miles. I went 3 hours and 10 minutes. I climbed 2,600 feet. I hadn't had a bite of food all day. I didn't take any water with me on the run. So I'm like starting to get really dehydrated and very low energy. I get back to the car and I take some cold water, and I'm like, I just need water. I'm so drained. And I chugged this cold glass of water, and within 10 seconds, all the water came right back out of my body. It was like, Bleh! Okay. That's when you know you've gone kind of at the physical. You've gone a little bit past the physical breaking point, right? Your body starts rejecting the things that it needs to feel better because it's in such a state, okay? But like, that's maybe like 2% of the training sessions. 98% of the training sessions, I feel good at the end, and I want to keep going, right? So experience taking yourself to the line, experience exercising all of its different capacities, when it feels good, when it doesn't feel good, when I'm indifferent, when it's neutral. Like, you want experience. You want experience in the body, that it knows how to deal with the physical sensations of pain and discomfort, to push through, to know what being injured feels like, to know what just being hurt feels like, to know what's a self-sabotage from the brain and what's a real issue, what's progressively getting worse, right? You have to have experience. You have to have experience lifting a heavy weight. You have to have experience sprinting. You have to experience a long low intensity run. You have to have all these different bodily experiences so that the spirit has something to grab onto when it says to the mind and the body, go forward into pain now. Keep going forward into pain. So that's the day-to-day training. And the mental knowledge of having been there before, having known what the middle feels like and how to get towards the end, allows the spirit to like just go, to provide that unending willpower to look at the adversity in front of you and say, I gotta jump over it. It's there. I gotta jump over it. I gotta jump over it. So we got day-to-day consistency in terms of body, mind, and spirit preparation and how I'm kind of making sense out of all this during race week. And here is the final secret. Here's the final secret to all of this and how we make it all happen. The day-to-day training must be rooted in the open heart. That's why we have to be doing the day-to-day training, is so that I can grow as a person, so that I can know myself, so I can discover and then conquer. So I can discover myself, conquer myself, humble myself, discover myself, conquer myself, humble myself. When I train like that, I am always ready for race day. I'm always ready for race day. I don't need a build. I can just show up. And that's not to say you don't train and you don't target and you don't aim for particular races, but the races aren't the things that matter. They're like these illusions in terms of what is really moving the needle when it comes to my progress and my process. It's the day-to-day training that is anchored out of love, that is anchored out of joy, that is anchored out of a zest and a search for the truth, that I'm strong enough to subject myself to the truth of who I am and what I'm capable of doing so that I can then improve myself once I know. And if that's what I do every single time I show up to the gym or to the running track or to the trails or just anything where I'm moving my body with intensity and intention, well, then I'm always going to be prepared, because I'm always going to be recognizing, noticing, and seeing the ways in which the body, the mind, and the spirit are always playing off of each other, so that when I get to race week, I can notice the things that are different, because effectively all the weeks of the year are the same when it comes to training. So when I notice my body starting to yell at me in weird ways, I can think, that's the mind. When I notice the nervous energy, I'm like, that's the willingness of the spirit. It wants to go. It wants to be there. I've got to restrain. I have to use the body and the mind to kind of like restrain, like deep breaths, managed training load in the final week. Being smart about sleep and hydration and stretching. And that also comes with experience of doing these races. The more you do, the more comfortable you get with the feelings and the sensations. It doesn't mean you're not going to have them. It doesn't mean they're not going to be intense. It just means that you're not a stranger in this land of the training and the competing. And one of the things that the daily training that's rooted in the heart brings us is immense gratitude and perspective, right? Gratitude that we can know ourselves, that we can push ourselves, that we can enjoy ourselves, that we get the ability to do this, and that we like parts of that challenge. Grateful because so many people, they view athletic training or exercise or physical activity as these punishments, right? As this penance. Whereas if you view it as salvation, as prayer, as testimony, it empowers you to such an incredible degree. And that's what gives you this ultimate sense of peace during race week. So while everybody else is frantic about final details, I'm just mostly concerned about getting to the campsite with a good mind, a good heart, and a good body. And for me, that's really being aided by the fact that my family is coming down for the first time. So I got my kids, my wife, and my wife's aunt all coming to the race, which gives me a good distraction in the sense of I got to prepare, I got to get things ready, I have to show them a good time, I got to show them that their faith in me was warranted. And there's a lot of pressure on me for this race in terms of my wife's never seen me race, and she has stood by me and supported me as I torpedoed my career as an academic and sort of asked her to trust me that I could rebuild that career as an online coach. And there's been success, there's been some failure, there's been trial, there's been tribulation, there's been joy, there's been tears. And I want to use the race as almost like a little bit of a full circle on this chapter. Like for her being, hey, thank you for putting your faith in me. Here's where it has gotten us, and that place is a good place. And I have to be able to go and run my best if I'm able, if I'm capable of proving that to her. It's that open heart. And then having all the people that I've helped do the best they can too. For the kids, it's literally about showing up on the day where you're supposed to show up and doing the thing you're supposed to do, which is what I preach to them all the time, and is what they see with me doing the daily training. So there's a lot riding on this. Showing up in front of all my teammates, leading the team as an assistant coach, leading a couple of my individual one-on-one guys, having my family at the race. Like, there's a lot of pressure to perform, but I don't feel that pressure. Why? Because I'm prepared. And how am I prepared? Because I show up for myself day to day when it doesn't matter, when no one is looking, right? When the lights aren't on, I'm out there grinding for myself, and I love that. So that when the lights get put on me, and it's my time to rise and shine, or shine and rise, or whatever, it's not something that is foreign to me. I don't have to become anything that I'm already not. I just have to go out and be. I just have to go out and do. And ultimately, that's the true beauty of this embodied training, is it just allows you to be who you are authentically, genuinely, and to be so confident and assured in that you're okay to face whatever is in front of you, whether that's a race, whether that's moving countries, whether that's starting a new business, whether that's swallowing a little bit of money and spending more time with your kids, like whatever that is to you. Know yourself through the training, and then let the competition be a celebration of yourself by showing who you are. That's why racing is great. That's why race week to me is so exciting, because it's this anticipation of a performance of self that has been almost practiced in secret for a long time by yourself. And that's a blessing and a gift that we get to do this. So I'm honored to be able to talk to you about competition, about my own preparation, and how I think about all these things, because I don't think a lot of people approach competition this way. Have I even mentioned mile targets? Have I mentioned pacing? Have I mentioned fueling strategy? Have I mentioned hydration? I have all these things in the back of my pocket. These are important components of the race, but to me, they're just details. They're secondary details, because if my heart is not in the right stance, and if I'm not aimed appropriately with the training and with the race, none of it matters. None of it matters. And I can have a great race, and I can set a PR, and I can win the race, and it won't mean anything. It won't mean anything if I don't have that stuff absolutely prioritized first. So you'll never really hear me talking about the specifics because to me, they're just like these extraneous details that, they are texture, they are color, they are a little bit of flavor, but they're not the thing. They're not the thing. The thing is my heart. The thing is my heart. And if I train with my heart every day, well, shoot, then competing with my heart is easy. And if I compete with my heart, I think I have a podcast titled this. Either way, it's a tag. You've heard it many times before. When you play with your heart, it's impossible to lose. When you play with your heart, it's impossible to lose. So if I train with my heart, then I know how to show up with my heart, and then I can compete with my heart, and then I win no matter what. Which is why I don't feel any pressure. So I don't feel any pressure, because even if I crash out, and let's say I go half as long as I want, that would be objectively a pretty bad day. I will have learned something tremendous about myself. It might not be pretty, but I'll be grateful for the lesson. And if I go 50% more than what I aim to do, well, hey, that's great. But it's also just a lesson. And a way for me to keep moving, to get excited for the next training session, the one where there's not a medal, the one where there's not 30 people in the camp, the one where my kids and my wife aren't cheering me on every single second. I don't have a conclusion because the race hasn't happened, but I just wanted to share what is on my mind and how I am thinking about this race and how I've gone about preparing for it. Day-to-day consistency, it's not sexy, but it's the only way towards this type of training and this type of competing, which can ennoble your spirit and bring about that true character growth. Because ultimately, the race is fun, but being a better dad, being a better husband, being a better coach, being a better person, that's what matters most. And that's how I train, that's how I prepare, and you best be sure that's how I am going to go out and race. I'll talk to you guys after this is all done. Wish me luck. Wish the team luck. We're about to have all the fun. Peace and love, guys. Talk to you in the next one.